I found strange money transfers from our joint account. When I started digging, I discovered my husband had been secretly seeing my sister. I said nothing, but quietly moved all our assets. When he announced he was leaving, his face... I'm glad you're here with me. Please listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I was 57 years old when my marriage died. I didn't know it yet, of course. I was still living in that comfortable fog of routine. 28 years of marriage, a beautiful home in suburban Connecticut, 2 grown children who called every Sunday. Richard and I had built something solid, or so I believed. What does a solid marriage look like after nearly 3 decades? Quiet dinners, separate but companionable routines, the occasional weekend trip to the Berkshires. We weren't passionate anymore, but we were partners, weren't we? The first crack appeared on a Tuesday morning in March. I was reviewing our joint checking account online, something I did every few weeks out of habit more than concern. Richard handled most of our finances. He was the CFO of a mid-sized pharmaceutical company, after all. Numbers were his domain, but I like to keep an eye on things, just to stay informed. That morning, I noticed a transfer, $5,000, moved to an account I didn't recognize. The notation simply read, "personal." My first thought wasn't suspicion, it was confusion. Had Richard opened a new investment account? Maybe he was planning a surprise. My birthday was coming up in 2 months. I made a mental note to ask him about it, then moved on with my day. I had a garden club meeting that afternoon, and I needed to prepare my notes on spring bulbs. But that evening, when I casually mentioned the transfer over dinner, Richard's reaction stopped me cold. Just for a second, maybe 2, his fork paused halfway to his mouth. His eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite name. Then he smiled, shrugged, and said it was a personal investment opportunity a colleague had mentioned. Nothing to worry about. The moment passed so quickly, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Almost. I started paying closer attention. Over the next 2 weeks, I found 3 more transfers, each one between $3,000 and $7,000. Each one marked personal. Each one met with the same casual dismissal from Richard when I asked. "Just moving some money around, honey. Trust me, it's fine." But that flicker in his eyes appeared every single time. Why would routine financial moves make him nervous? The garden club meeting in April changed everything. My sister Jennifer was supposed to come. She joined the club last year at my encouragement after her divorce from Tom. We'd always been close, or I thought we had been. She was 3 years younger than me. And after her marriage fell apart, I'd made it my mission to help her rebuild her life. I'd even helped her find her current apartment, co-signed the lease when her credit wasn't quite good enough. But that day, Jennifer didn't show up. When I called her afterward, she sounded flustered, out of breath. "Oh God, Claire, I completely forgot. I had an appointment. I'm so sorry." An appointment at 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday? Jennifer worked as a freelance graphic designer. Her schedule was flexible. She never forgot things like this. And why did she sound like she'd been running? Something twisted in my gut. Intuition, maybe, or just the accumulated weight of too many small inconsistencies. I told her not to worry about it, that we'd missed her, that I'd send her the notes. My voice sounded normal, friendly, but my hands were shaking when I hung up. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Richard listening to his steady breathing, and I felt like I was going insane. What was I thinking? That my husband and my sister were... what exactly? The idea was ridiculous, paranoid. Richard had never given me reason to doubt him in 28 years. Jennifer was my sister, my closest family member since our parents passed. I was creating problems where none existed, but I couldn't let it go. The next morning, after Richard left for work, I did something I'd never done before. I went into his home office, a converted bedroom on the second floor, and I started looking through his papers. I felt like a criminal, like I was violating some sacred trust. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might be sick. What was I even looking for? I found it in his desk drawer, tucked inside a folder labeled Tax Documents 2023. It was a receipt from a jewelry store in Stamford, dated 3 weeks earlier, a diamond pendant, $4,800. I stood there holding that small piece of paper, and the room seemed to tilt around me. My birthday wasn't for another 6 weeks. Our anniversary had passed 4 months ago. Richard had given me a nice dinner and a cashmere sweater. So who was the necklace for? I heard my own breathing, harsh and rapid, in the quiet room. This was the moment where everything I thought I knew began to crack open like an egg, revealing something dark and rotten inside. I put the receipt back exactly where I'd found it. My hands moved on autopilot while my mind raced in 1,000 directions at once. 28 years. We'd been married for 28 years. I'd given him my youth, my trust, my entire adult life. I'd supported his career moves, raised our children mostly alone while he worked 60-hour weeks, moved across 3 states for his promotions. And now this. The diamond pendant haunted me. I kept seeing it in my mind, some delicate, expensive thing hanging around another woman's neck. Around my sister's neck? No, that couldn't be right. I was jumping to conclusions, letting paranoia poison my thoughts. But the timing of Jennifer's odd behavior, the mysterious transfers, the nervous flicker in Richard's eyes, it all swirled together into a picture I didn't want to see. I spent that entire day in a fog. I went through the motions, made the bed, did the laundry, prepared dinner. But inside, I was calculating. If Richard was having an affair, what did that mean for me? We lived in Connecticut, an equitable distribution state. After 28 years of marriage, I'd be entitled to roughly half of everything we'd built together. The house was in both our names, so were our retirement accounts, our investments. Richard made excellent money, but I'd contributed too. Not just as a homemaker, but in the early years when I'd worked as a paralegal to help pay off his business school loans. But how much had he already moved? Those transfers I'd noticed were just the ones in our joint account. What if there were others I didn't know about? What if he was systematically hiding assets, preparing for a divorce I hadn't even seen coming? The thought made my blood run cold. Then it made me angry. That evening, when Richard came home, I greeted him with a smile. I asked about his day, served his favorite pot roast, laughed at his tired joke about his boss. He had no idea that behind my pleasant expression, I was studying him like a stranger, looking for cracks in his mask. He seemed relaxed, normal. He even complimented my cooking, kissed my cheek as he cleared his plate. Was I crazy? Was I inventing problems in a perfectly good marriage? Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and there it was again. That flicker. Quick as lightning, barely noticeable. But I was watching for it now. He picked up his phone, read the message, and said, "I need to make a quick call about tomorrow's meeting. I'll be in my office." He left the kitchen, and I heard his office door close firmly. I stood at the sink, my hands in soapy water, and I just knew. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't a midlife crisis making me see shadows where none existed. My husband was lying to me. The only question was, about what exactly? I needed proof, not suspicions, not intuition, concrete evidence. Because if I was going to protect myself, if I was going to make sure Richard didn't leave me high and dry after 3 decades, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. And I needed to be smart about it. The next morning, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Not our family lawyer, Richard's golf buddy who'd handled our wills and our house closing. I needed someone who was mine alone, someone who could tell me what my rights were, what steps I should take. I found a firm that specialized in divorce, made the appointment for Monday morning when Richard would be at work. Then I started documenting everything. I created a new email account Richard didn't know about. I took photos of every statement I could find, every receipt, every piece of paper that showed our financial situation. I photographed the jewelry receipt, the bank transfers, everything. I kept meticulous records of dates and amounts. I felt like a spy in my own home, but I was also strangely calm. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something harder and clearer. Focus. That's what I needed. Not tears, not confrontation. Focus. On Sunday afternoon, Jennifer called to invite me to lunch. Her voice was bright, cheerful, with that slight edge of guilt that I'd learned to recognize over the years. She wanted to make up for missing the garden club meeting, she said. How about Tuesday at that new bistro in town? I almost said no. I almost made an excuse. But then I thought, why not? Maybe I was wrong about her. Maybe she had nothing to do with this. And if she did, well, I wanted to look her in the eye. I wanted to see if my sister could lie to my face. Tuesday sounds perfect, I told her, my voice warm and steady. I can't wait. The lawyer's office was in a discreet building in downtown Hartford, 30 minutes from my house. I'd told Richard I had a dentist appointment, a cleaning I'd been putting off. He'd barely looked up from his laptop when I mentioned it. Monday morning traffic was light, and I arrived 15 minutes early. I sat in my car in the parking garage, gripping the steering wheel, breathing slowly. Was I really doing this? Was I really preparing for my marriage to end? Yes, because even if I was wrong, even if there was some innocent explanation for everything, I needed to protect myself. I'd seen too many women my age left devastated by divorces they never saw coming. I wouldn't be one of them. Jennifer Walsh's office was tastefully decorated. Cream walls, mahogany furniture, a few carefully chosen pieces of art. She was in her early 40s with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. "Tell me everything," she said once we were settled with coffee. "Don't leave anything out, even if you think it's not important." So I did. The transfers, the receipt, Jennifer's strange behavior, Richard's nervous tells. As I spoke, Jennifer took notes, her expression neutral and professional. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me directly. "First, let me say, I'm sorry you're going through this," she said. "Second, let me tell you what we're going to do. Connecticut is an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets are divided fairly. Not necessarily equally, but fairly based on various factors, including length of marriage, contributions, future earning potential. You've been married 28 years. That's significant." She outlined my rights, explained the difference between marital and separate property, discussed alimony possibilities. Then she got to the part that made my stomach clench. If your husband is moving money around, hiding assets, that's a serious issue. Courts don't look kindly on that, but we need proof, hard proof. Do you have access to all your financial accounts? "Most of them," I said. "We have a joint checking and savings. I think there are retirement accounts through his company, but I don't have direct access to those." "We can subpoena those records if necessary," Jennifer said. "But here's what I want you to do right now. Document everything. Every account you can access, photograph the statements, check credit card records, both joint and individual cards. Look for unusual purchases, recurring charges, anything out of the ordinary. Can you do that?" I nodded. I was already doing it, but hearing her confirm the strategy made it feel more real, more legitimate. "What about, should I confront him? Tell him I know something's going on?" "Not yet," Jennifer said firmly. "Not until we know exactly what we're dealing with. The moment you confront him, he'll know you're onto him. He'll be more careful, possibly accelerate any asset hiding he's doing. Right now, you have the advantage of surprise. Don't give it up. I left her office with a manila folder full of documents, information about Connecticut divorce law, a list of documents to gather, a retainer agreement I'd signed. I felt simultaneously empowered and terrified. This was happening. I was preparing to divorce my husband of nearly 3 decades. The next morning, Tuesday, I met Jennifer for lunch at the new bistro, Le Coeur, a French place with 2 expensive salads and wine by the glass. My sister was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table, looking beautiful as always. Jennifer had gotten her mother's bone structure, the high cheekbones and graceful neck. At 54, she could still turn heads. She stood to hug me, and I smelled her perfume, something floral and expensive, something new. "Claire, you look wonderful. How have you been?" "Good," I said, settling into my chair. "Busy with the garden club, the usual things. How about you? How's work?" We ordered salads and sparkling water. Jennifer chatted about a new client, a design project for a tech startup. She seemed relaxed, animated. I watched her hands as she talked. Graceful, expressive, with perfectly manicured nails painted a soft rose. And there, on her left hand, catching the light from the window, a new ring, simple, elegant, a band of small diamonds. My heart stopped, then started again, harder. "That's a beautiful ring," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Is it new?" Jennifer glanced down at her hand, and for just a fraction of a second, something crossed her face. Guilt? Fear? Then she smiled. "Oh, this. Yes, I treated myself. After the divorce, I just wanted something that was mine. Something beautiful." "When did you get it?" "Last month, maybe 6 weeks ago. I can't remember exactly." She took a sip of her water. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. It's lovely." I cut into my salad, though I'd lost my appetite. Last month, 6 weeks ago, right around the time of those transfers, right around the time of the jewelry receipt. The conversation continued, but I was barely present. I smiled, nodded, asked appropriate questions, and I watched my sister lie to me with a straight face, because I knew. Somehow, in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty. The ring wasn't the only thing Richard had bought her. That evening, I waited until Richard was asleep. Then I took his phone from the nightstand, carefully, quietly, barely breathing. His passcode was our anniversary. He'd never changed it. I opened his messages and started scrolling. It took less than 2 minutes to find what I was looking for, a thread with a contact labeled J. The most recent message from 3 hours ago. "Can't wait to see you Thursday. Usual place. Love you." I read backwards through the conversation. Months of messages, intimate, explicit, planning meetings and trips. My husband and my sister carrying on an affair for at least 6 months, maybe longer. The phone trembled in my hands. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone against the wall, to wake Richard up and demand answers. Instead, I took photographs, every single message, every incriminating word. Then I put his phone back exactly where it had been and went downstairs to the kitchen, where I sat in the dark and cried silently for everything I'd lost. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those messages, Richard's words to my sister. "You're so beautiful. I can't stop thinking about you. She doesn't understand me the way you do." That last one was almost funny. Such a cliché. But clichés exist because they're true, don't they? Men really do say these things, even men who've been married for 28 years. By morning, I'd moved past crying. I was hollow, emptied out. But inside that hollowness, something hard was forming. Determination, maybe. or just the survival instinct kicking in. I made Richard breakfast like always: coffee, toast, scrambled eggs. He kissed my forehead on his way out the door. "Love you," he said, those meaningless words falling from his lips as easily as breathing. "Love you too," I replied. The lie tasted like ash. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I was on the phone with Jennifer Walsh. "I have proof," I said, my voice steady despite everything. Text messages, months of them. "It's my sister. My husband is having an affair with my sister." There was a brief pause on the other end. Then Jennifer said, "Send me the photos, all of them." "And Claire?" "I'm sorry, but this actually works in your favor legally. Connecticut considers adultery an asset division. Now, here's what we need to do today." Over the next 3 hours, I became a woman I didn't recognize. Efficient, cold, strategic. I transferred half the money from our joint savings into a new account in my name only, $87,000. Connecticut law allowed me to secure marital assets once I had proof of adultery. I removed my grandmother's jewelry from our safe deposit box, family heirlooms that Richard had no claim to anyway. I gathered every financial document I could find and made copies. I changed passwords on my personal accounts. Then I did something that felt almost too bold. I put a freeze on our joint credit cards. If Richard wanted to spend money on his mistress, he'd have to use his own accounts. Let him explain those charges in court. I was printing bank statements in Richard's office when I heard the garage door open. It was only 2 in the afternoon. He shouldn't be home for hours. My heart hammered against my ribs. I shoved the papers into a folder and walked calmly downstairs, arriving in the kitchen just as Richard entered from the garage. His face was flushed, his jaw tight. He was holding his phone. "Claire, what the hell is going on? I just tried to use my credit card for lunch, and it was declined. Our joint card was declined." I met his gaze steadily. "I put a freeze on it." "You what?" His voice rose. "Why would you do that?" "Why do you think, Richard?" Something flickered in his eyes. Panic, maybe calculation. "I don't know what you're talking about. This is insane. You can't just freeze our credit cards without discussing it with me." "Can I?" "They're joint cards. I have every right." I crossed my arms, standing my ground in the kitchen where I'd cooked his meals for 28 years. "How long has it been going on?" "How long has what?" "Don't." My voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare lie to me anymore. I know about Jennifer. I've seen the messages." The color drained from his face. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then he seemed to deflate, his shoulders sagging. "Claire, It's not what you think." "Really? What is it then?" "Explain to me how 'I can't stop thinking about you' means something other than what it obviously means." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. Long enough to talk to a lawyer. Long enough to protect my interests. Did you really think I'd just roll over and let you take everything?" Now anger flashed across his face. "Take everything? I built our life, my career, my income." "Our life," I interrupted. "I raised your children. I moved 3 times for your promotions. I put my career on hold so you could build yours. This is our money, Richard. Not yours, ours." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "You need to unfreeze those cards. You need to transfer that money back. You're going to regret this, Claire. You have no idea what I'm capable of." Was he threatening me? My husband of 28 years was standing in our kitchen, threatening me? "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of my house. Go stay with your whore. I'm sure she'll be happy to have you." "This is my house, too." "Then I'll leave." I grabbed my purse from the counter. But the freeze stays. The accounts stay. And if you try anything at all, my lawyer will destroy you in court. How will your company's board feel about their CFO having an affair with his wife's sister? How will that look? I saw him pale again. His position, his reputation, these things mattered to Richard more than almost anything. I'd found his weakness, and he knew it. I walked out of my own home, got in my car, and drove to a hotel near the highway. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. Once I was checked in, alone in an anonymous room that smelled of cleaning products and other people's lives, I finally let myself break down completely. I sobbed into the stiff hotel pillows until my throat was raw and my eyes swollen. I cried for my marriage, for my sister's betrayal, for the life I'd thought I had. I cried until there was nothing left inside me but a strange, empty calm. Then I ordered room service, took a long, hot shower, and slept for 12 hours straight. I'd earned it. I woke in that hotel room to 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. Most were from Richard, escalating from apologetic to angry to desperate. "Claire, please, we need to talk. You're being irrational. I love you. We can work through this. Answer your goddamn phone." 3 calls were from Jennifer. I deleted her voicemails without listening. It was Thursday morning. I ordered coffee and breakfast from room service, then called Jennifer Walsh. "I had a confrontation with my husband yesterday. He knows I know. I'm in a hotel." "Good," she said crisply. "Stay there. Don't go back to the house unless you're comfortable being there with him. We need to file the divorce papers as soon as possible, now that everything's out in the open. Can you come to my office this afternoon?" "Yes. Bring everything you've gathered. We're going to move fast, Claire. He had his chance to be civil. Now we do this my way." I spent the morning organizing documents, making lists, checking accounts online to make sure Richard hadn't tried to move money. He'd been smart enough not to, or maybe his lawyer had already told him not to. Either way, my money was secure. Our money, I corrected myself. The money I was legally entitled to protect. At noon, my phone rang. My daughter, Emily. My heart clenched. Did she know? Had Richard already started trying to turn our children against me? "Mom, Dad called me. He said you guys are having problems, that you moved out. What's going on?" Emily was 30 years old, a pediatrician in Boston, married with a baby girl I adored. My firstborn. I'd sworn I wouldn't burden my children with this, wouldn't put them in the middle. But I also wouldn't lie. "Your father and I are separating," I said carefully. "It's complicated, honey. I don't want to put you in the middle." "Mom, what happened?" Dad sounded, I don't know, desperate. "This doesn't make sense. You guys have been together forever." "Some things have come to light that I can't get past. I'm sorry, Em. I know this is hard to hear." "Is there someone else? Is that what this is?" Her voice was sharp with concern, with fear for her family falling apart. I closed my eyes. Not on my side. Silence, then, "Oh, Mom, oh no, who?" "It doesn't matter right now. What matters is that I'm okay. I'm taking care of myself. I have a good lawyer. Please don't worry about me." "Don't worry. Mom, you're my mother. Of course I'm going to worry. Do you need me to come home?" "No, sweetheart. Stay with your family. I'll call you in a few days, okay? I love you." After we hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Emily was on my side. She didn't even need the details. She knew me well enough to trust my judgment. That meant everything. That evening, back in my hotel room after a productive meeting with Jennifer Walsh, my sister finally showed up. The front desk called my room. "There's a Jennifer Miller here to see you." My sister had kept her married name. I almost laughed at the irony. "Tell her I'm not available." "She says it's urgent, family emergency." Of course she did. "Tell her to leave, please." 10 minutes later, my phone rang, Jennifer's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "What?" "Claire, please, please, I need to talk to you. I'm in the lobby, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." "You're asking for 5 minutes? After what you've done. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, let me explain. There's so much you don't understand. The audacity was almost impressive. What exactly don't I understand, Jennifer? The concept of adultery? The definition of betrayal? Which part am I missing? It's not like that. It's more complicated. Richard and I, it just happened. We didn't mean for it to. It just happened, I repeated flatly. How many times? How many family dinners did you sit through smiling at me while you were sleeping with my husband? How many times did I help you, support you, love you as my sister, while you were stabbing me in the back? Claire, her voice cracked. Was she crying? Actually crying? I never wanted to hurt you. You have to believe that. But Richard and I, we connected in a way that... Stop. Just stop. I was surprised by how calm I sounded. I don't care about your connection. I don't care about your feelings or your excuses. You and Richard destroyed 28 years of my life, and you destroyed our family. For what? A middle-aged man with a receding hairline and high cholesterol? Congratulations. You can have him. It's not about that. We're in love. Love. The word tasted bitter. You don't know what love is, Jennifer. Love is commitment, loyalty, honesty. What you have is infatuation and guilt. And when that wears off, and it will, you'll be left with a man who cheated on his wife with her own sister. What makes you think he won't do the same to you? Silence on the other end. Had I finally gotten through? I'm filing for divorce, I continued. I'm taking what I'm entitled to, and I never want to see you again. You're not my sister anymore. You're just the woman who slept with my husband. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from power, from the strange exhilaration of finally saying exactly what I meant. No politeness, no hedging, no trying to keep the peace, just pure, honest truth. I called my best friend Linda, whom I'd known since college. She listened to the entire story without interrupting, then said, I'm driving up tomorrow. You're not going through this alone. And just like that, I wasn't. Linda arrived Friday afternoon with a suitcase, a bag of takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant, and a bottle of good wine. She took one look at my face in the hotel doorway and pulled me into a fierce hug. You look like hell, she said. Let's get you fed. We ate pad thai and drank wine while I told her everything. The whole sordid story from the first suspicious transfer to yesterday's phone call with Jennifer. Linda listened, her expression cycling through shock, rage, and something that looked like murderous intent. I'm going to kill them both, she announced, slowly, painfully. I know people. Despite everything, I laughed. I don't think that's legally advisable. Fine, then we destroy them the legal way. What does your lawyer say? We're filing papers on Monday, full asset disclosure, alimony claim, everything. Jennifer, the lawyer Jennifer, not my soon-to-be ex-sister, says I have a strong case. The adultery helps. Connecticut courts don't mandate consideration of adultery, but judges are human. They see a man cheating with his wife's sister, and it influences their decisions about what's equitable. Good. Linda raised her wine glass. To justice, and to you for being a hell of a lot stronger than either of them deserves. We spent the weekend in that hotel room ordering room service and bad movies, talking through my next steps. Linda was a real estate agent with a sharp business sense. She helped me think through the financial implications, potential scenarios, what I'd need to rebuild my life. You should keep the house, she said firmly. Make him buy you out or force the sale. Don't just hand him your home. I don't know if I can live there anymore. Too many memories. Then sell it and take your half. But don't let them push you into giving up what's yours. Monday morning, I met Jennifer Walsh at her office. We reviewed the divorce petition one final time before filing. This is it, she said. Once we file this, there's no going back. Are you ready?" "Yes," I said, and I meant it. The papers were filed by noon. Richard was served at his office at 2:30. I was back at the hotel when he called, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. "This is how you want to play it? Fine, but you're making a huge mistake, Claire." "I don't think so. I have lawyers too, good ones. You're not going to just take everything and walk away." "I'm not trying to take everything, just what I'm entitled to, which is half. Half of what I built. We built together for 28 years. He hung up on me. That evening, there was a knock on my hotel room door. I looked through the peephole and saw both of them, Richard and Jennifer, standing side by side in the hallway. My stomach turned over. I considered not answering, but something hard and defiant in me wanted to face them, to show them I wasn't afraid. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "What do you want?" Richard looked haggard, older somehow than he'd looked a week ago. Jennifer wouldn't meet my eyes. "We need to talk," Richard said. "Can we come in?" "No, say whatever you came to say from there." He glanced down the hallway, worried about witnesses, about his image, always worried about appearances. "Fine. Claire, this has gotten out of hand. We're all adults here. We should be able to work this out without lawyers and courts and all this drama." "Drama," I repeated. "Is that what you call it?" Jennifer finally spoke, her voice small. "Claire, please. I know you're hurt, but can't we just talk about this? Families should be able to work things out." The sheer audacity of that word, family, from her lips made my vision blur with rage. "You gave up the right to call me family when you slept with my husband." "It's not like I planned it," Jennifer said, and now I could hear the defensive edge in her voice, the real her starting to emerge. "These things happen. People fall in love. You and Richard were basically roommates anyway." "Roommates," I said slowly. "Is that what he told you? That our marriage was already dead?" Richard stepped forward. "Claire, listen. Let's be practical here. We can settle this quietly, privately. You drop the fault allegations. We agree to a simple no-fault divorce. Split things reasonably." "Reasonably," I interrupted. "Meaning I take less than half so you two can ride off into the sunset with my money?" "It's not your money." "It's exactly my money." My voice rose despite my intention to stay calm. "I earned it. Maybe not in an office, maybe not with a fancy title, but I earned every dollar by being your wife, by raising your children, by supporting your career." Richard's expression hardened. "You want to fight? Fine. But I'm warning you, Claire. I have resources. I have connections. You force this to trial, and I will make sure you regret it. I'll drag out every detail of our marriage, every complaint, every problem. I'll paint you as an unstable, paranoid woman who destroyed a good marriage over nothing." "Nothing? You call what you did nothing?" Jennifer touched Richard's arm, a familiar, intimate gesture that made me want to vomit. "Richard, maybe we should—" "No," he said, still staring at me. "She needs to understand what she's up against. Drop the fault claims, Claire. Agree to a reasonable settlement, or I'll bury you." Something crystallized in that moment, looking at the two of them standing together against me, my husband of 28 years and my sister, united in their betrayal, now threatening me because I dared to stand up for myself. They'd expected me to crumble, to accept whatever scraps they were willing to throw me. They'd expected me to be weak. "Get out," I said quietly. "Claire," Jennifer started. "Get out of this hotel. Get out of my life. And tell your lawyers to prepare for war. Because I'm not dropping anything. I'm not settling quietly. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you both are." Richard's face flushed with anger. "You'll regret this." "I already regret plenty, but this won't be one of those things." They left. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there shaking. My heart was pounding, adrenaline flooding my system. I was scared. Scared of Richard's threats, scared of the legal battle ahead, scared of being alone at 57 and starting over. But underneath the fear was something harder, something unbreakable: determination, rage, the absolute certainty that I was doing the right thing. They'd tried to manipulate me, threaten me, make me back down. It hadn't worked, and it never would. The deposition was scheduled for 3 weeks later in a conference room at Jennifer Walsh's law firm. Richard had retained Marcus Brennan, a divorce attorney with a reputation for being aggressive and expensive. The kind of lawyer who sent a message, "I'm not backing down, neither was I." I'd spent those 3 weeks preparing. Jennifer Walsh had drilled me on what to expect, how to answer questions, how to stay calm no matter what Brennan threw at me. "He'll try to rattle you," she'd warned. "He'll bring up every argument you and Richard ever had, every imperfection in your marriage. Don't take the bait. Answer truthfully but briefly. And remember, you have the high ground here. You're not the one who cheated." Linda had helped me move back into the house. Richard had taken an apartment near his office. Or maybe he'd moved in with Jennifer. I didn't know and didn't care. The house felt empty and strange, full of ghosts, but it was mine. I wasn't going to be driven out of my own home. The morning of the deposition, I dressed carefully. A navy blue suit, modest jewelry, minimal makeup. I wanted to look composed, respectable, credible. The wronged wife, not the vengeful harpy Richard would try to paint me as. The conference room was large and intimidating, with a long table and 2 bright fluorescent lights. Richard was already there with Brennan, a silver-haired man with cold eyes. Jennifer Walsh sat beside me, her presence solid and reassuring. A court reporter was set up at one end of the table, ready to transcribe every word. Richard wouldn't look at me. Good. I didn't want to look at him either. Brennan started with the basics: name, age, length of marriage. Then he moved into more dangerous territory. "Mrs. Harper, your husband indicates that your marriage had been troubled for several years. Would you say that's accurate?" "No," I said clearly. "I believed we had a strong marriage until I discovered the affair." "You weren't aware of any problems? Any distance between you?" "Marriage evolves over nearly 3 decades. We weren't newlyweds anymore, obviously. But I had no indication Richard was unhappy enough to cheat." "Did you and Mr. Harper still maintain an intimate relationship?" I felt my face heat but kept my voice steady. "Yes." "How frequently?" Jennifer Walsh interjected. "I'm not sure how that's relevant." "It goes to the state of the marriage," Brennan said smoothly. "If Mrs. Harper is claiming total shock and surprise, we need to establish whether there were signs she chose to ignore." I answered his invasive questions about our sex life, our arguments, our daily routines. Every answer felt like a violation, like being forced to strip naked in front of strangers. But I didn't break. I didn't cry. I answered truthfully and moved on. Then Brennan brought out a folder. "Mrs. Harper, are you aware that you withdrew $87,000 from your joint savings account without your husband's knowledge or consent?" I transferred my share to protect it. After discovering evidence of the affair, I had reason to believe marital assets might be at risk. "Your share? How did you determine that $87,000 was your share?" "It's half. The account had approximately $174,000. So you simply took what you deemed to be yours." "I secured what I'm legally entitled to protect, yes." Brennan's smile was thin and sharp. "And you froze joint credit cards, preventing your husband from accessing credit that was in his name as well as yours." "Yes." "Did it occur to you that this was financial abuse? That you were using money to punish and control your husband?" Jennifer Walsh's voice was ice. "Counselor, that's argumentative and assumes facts not in evidence. Mrs. Harper took legal action to protect marital assets upon discovering adultery. That's not abuse, that's prudence. Let me rephrase, Brennan said, his tone suggesting he was being magnanimous. Mrs. Harper, did you consult with your husband before taking these actions? No. Did you consider his needs, his rights? Did he consider mine when he was sleeping with my sister? The words came out before I could stop them, sharp and loud in the quiet room. Brennan's eyes gleamed. So this is about revenge, about punishing Mr. Harper for his relationship with your sister. This is about protecting myself from a man who spent months lying to me, stealing from our marriage to buy gifts for his mistress, and planning a future that didn't include me. I don't need to punish Richard. His choices have done that already. Mrs. Harper, you seem very angry. Of course I'm angry. I leaned forward, done with pretending to be mild and conciliatory. My husband betrayed me with my sister. He violated every vow we made. He destroyed our family. You're damn right I'm angry. But that doesn't make me wrong. That doesn't change the fact that I'm entitled to what I'm asking for. Jennifer Walsh touched my arm gently, a warning to pull back, to calm down. But something had shifted in the room. Brennan had expected me to be emotional and irrational. Instead, I was emotional and completely justified. There's a difference. We broke for lunch. When we reconvened, it was Richard's turn to be deposed. I sat quietly while Jennifer Walsh questioned him, watching him squirm under her precise, relentless interrogation. Mr. Harper, when did your sexual relationship with Jennifer Miller begin? Last August. 9 months ago. And how many times did you meet with Ms. Miller during those 9 months? I don't know exactly. Estimate. Maybe twice a week? So approximately 70 times. And where did these meetings occur? Hotels mostly, sometimes her apartment. Did you use marital funds to pay for these hotels? Richard hesitated. Sometimes. Did you purchase gifts for Ms. Miller? A few things. Including a diamond necklace worth $4,800? Yes. Using marital funds. His jaw tightened. Yes. Jennifer Walsh pulled out copies of bank statements, credit card records, receipts, all the evidence I'd gathered. She walked him through every purchase, every transfer, every lie. He tried to minimize, to explain, but the facts were damning. He'd spent thousands of dollars on the affair, money that should have been ours, spent on my sister. Then Jennifer Walsh dropped the bomb. Mr. Harper, did you and Miss Miller discuss marriage? Richard paled. What? It's a simple question. Did you and your mistress discuss getting married? We might have talked about the future. Did you promise to leave your wife for her? I said we'd be together eventually. Eventually, meaning after what? After you'd secured more assets? After you'd hidden enough money that your wife couldn't claim her fair share? That's not... Richard was flustered now, angry. You're twisting everything. Am I? Because it seems quite clear. You engaged in a long-term affair, spent marital funds on your mistress, and made promises about a future together. Those are facts, Mr. Harper, not twists. The deposition lasted 7 hours. By the end, Richard looked defeated, drained. I felt wrung out, but strangely victorious. The truth was on record now, all of it. His lies, his betrayal, his financial misconduct, everything documented, transcribed, undeniable. As we left the conference room, Richard tried to catch my arm. Claire, wait. I pulled away. Don't touch me. This doesn't have to go to trial. We can still settle. Now you want to settle? After your lawyer spent all day trying to destroy me? Please, for the kids, for what we had. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but contempt. What we had a lie. You made sure of that. See you in court, Richard. I walked out with my head high, Jennifer Walsh at my side, and I knew we'd won. The trial was set for early October, but we never made it that far. 2 weeks after the deposition, Marcus Brennan called Jennifer Walsh with a settlement offer. Richard wanted to negotiate. "They're scared," Jennifer told me over the phone. "The deposition was damaging. Brennan knows that if we go to trial, a judge is going to crucify Richard. He cheated with your sister, spent marital funds on the affair, and came across as entitled and unremorseful. That's a terrible look. So what are they offering?" 60-40 split in your favor of all marital assets, plus alimony of $6,000 a month for 10 years. You keep the house, he takes his retirement account, and you split the investment portfolio. It's actually pretty good, Claire. I did the math in my head. The house was worth $850,000, still had $200,000 left on the mortgage. The investment portfolio was around $1.2 million. His 401k was worth $600,000, mine $180,000. Add in savings, other assets, we were looking at roughly $3 million in total marital property. 60-40 split meant I'd walk away with about $1.8 million plus $720,000 in alimony over 10 years, nearly $2.5 million total. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think it's a solid offer. We could do better at trial, maybe 70-30, maybe more alimony. But trials are expensive, emotionally draining, and there's always risk. A different judge might not be as sympathetic. If it were me, I'd seriously consider this." I thought about it for 2 days. I talked to Linda, to my daughter Emily, to my son David, who'd flown home from California when he heard about the divorce. Both my children were devastated by their father's betrayal, especially when they learned it was with their aunt. "Take him for everything," David had said, his young face hard with anger. "He deserves it." But I was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of reliving the betrayal, tired of Richard taking up space in my head. I wanted this finished. I wanted to move on. "Tell them I'll accept the offer," I told Jennifer Walsh, "with one addition." "What's that?" "Richard has to sign a statement admitting to the affair and acknowledging his financial misconduct. I want it in writing, part of the settlement agreement, not just buried in legal language, clear, explicit admission." "Claire, that's unusual. Most settlements are no fault, no admission." "That's my condition. He wants to settle, he admits what he did. Otherwise, we go to trial and let everyone hear about it." Jennifer Walsh called back 3 hours later. "He agreed. He's not happy about it, but he agreed." The settlement conference was held at a neutral attorney's office, a sterile room with gray walls and uncomfortable chairs. Richard looked diminished somehow, smaller than I remembered. Jennifer was there too. Apparently she and Richard were still together, though I'd heard through Linda's gossip network that things were rocky between them. Turns out being someone's affair partner is different from being their actual partner. Who knew? I barely looked at either of them. I reviewed the settlement documents, every page, every clause. Jennifer Walsh explained each section, made sure I understood what I was signing, and then there it was, on page 7. Richard Michael Harper acknowledges that he engaged in an extramarital affair with Jennifer Miller, sister of Claire Harper, during the marriage, and that he used marital funds for purposes related to said affair. Black and white, undeniable, permanent. I signed my name. Richard signed his. We initialed every page, witnessed by our attorneys. And just like that, 28 years of marriage ended. Not with love, not with sadness, but with signatures and legal documents. As we stood to leave, Richard tried one last time. "Claire, I am sorry. I know you don't want to hear it, but I am. I never meant to hurt you." I looked at him. Really looked at him for the first time in weeks. "You know what's sad, Richard? I believe you. You didn't mean to hurt me. You just didn't think about me at all. I was so far from your mind when you were making your choices that my pain never even registered. And that's actually worse than deliberate cruelty. He had no answer to that. Jennifer tried to speak, but I held up my hand. Don't. We have nothing to say to each other. Ever. The money transferred within 2 weeks. The house was officially mine. Richard moved his belongings out on a rainy afternoon while I was conveniently away at Linda's house. I didn't want to see him pack up pieces of our life, didn't want to watch him carry boxes of his clothes, his books, his stupid golf trophies out to whatever new life he'd built. When I returned, the house felt empty but clean, like a fresh start, like possibility. The divorce was final by Thanksgiving. I spent the holiday with Emily, David, and Emily's family, holding my granddaughter and feeling grateful for what I still had, what Richard couldn't take from me. I heard through the grapevine that Richard and Jennifer's relationship imploded by Christmas. Apparently, once the affair became their actual relationship, the thrill faded. Who could have possibly predicted that? They lasted less than a year together after destroying our family. Less than a year for 28 years of marriage. The justice in that was almost poetic. 6 months after the divorce was final, I sold the house. I'd thought about keeping it, but Linda was right. Too many memories. Every room echoed with ghosts of the life I'd thought I had. I needed something new, something entirely mine. I found a beautiful condo in downtown Hartford, 19th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 2 bedrooms, an open kitchen, hardwood floors. Modern, clean, nothing like the suburban colonial I'd spent decades maintaining. I furnished it exactly how I wanted. No compromises, no considering anyone else's taste. White sofas, abstract art. A balcony with plants I actually liked instead of Richard's preferred roses. With my settlement money smartly invested, thanks to a financial advisor Linda recommended, I had income from dividends plus the alimony. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable. More than comfortable. I was free. I'd started painting again, something I'd given up in my 30s when the kids were small and Richard's career demands intensified. I'd forgotten how much I loved it, the smell of oils, the texture of canvas, the way hours could disappear when I was working. I rented a small studio space in an arts building nearby and spent 3 or 4 days a week there, creating. My work was getting better. I'd even sold a few pieces at a local gallery. The money didn't matter. I didn't need it. But the validation, the sense of accomplishment, the knowledge that I was building something new and worthwhile, that was everything. Emily and David had adjusted to the divorce better than I'd feared. They were angry at their father, disappointed in their aunt, but they'd rallied around me in a way that made me almost grateful for the crisis. We were closer now than we'd been in years. Emily brought the baby to visit every few weeks. David called twice a week from San Francisco just to check in to hear my voice. "You sound happy, Mom," he'd said during our last conversation. "Really happy." "I am, sweetheart, I really am." Linda and I traveled, something I'd always wanted to do, but Richard had never been interested in. We spent 2 weeks in Italy, eating pasta and drinking wine and wandering through ancient cities. We went to Paris, to London, to Ireland. We had adventures. We laughed until we cried. I felt young again, or maybe not young, but vital, alive in a way I hadn't been in years. I joined a divorced women's support group at the local community center, thinking I'd give it a try once or twice. I'd ended up staying. The women there understood in a way no one else could. The grief, the anger, the strange, guilty relief of being free. We supported each other, celebrated victories, commiserated over setbacks. I'd made real friends there, women in their 40s and 50s and 60s who were rebuilding their lives just like me. One of them, a woman named Patricia, had introduced me to her brother Michael at a group barbecue. He was 62, a retired architect, widowed 5 years ago. We'd talked for 3 hours that first evening, and by the end of the night, he'd asked for my number. We'd been seeing each other for 2 months now. Nothing serious yet, just dinner, walks, good conversation. It was nice. Easy. He made me laugh. He listened when I talked. He didn't try to rush me into anything. "I like him," Linda had announced after meeting Michael for the first time. "He's normal, decent, the anti-Richard." I'd laughed. "That's setting a pretty low bar." "Maybe, but after what you've been through, normal and decent sounds pretty damn good." She wasn't wrong. Meanwhile, Richard's life had imploded quite spectacularly. His relationship with Jennifer had crashed and burned within months of our divorce being final, just as I'd predicted. Turned out, a relationship built on betrayal and secrecy doesn't translate well to everyday reality. Who knew? I'd heard through various channels, Hartford was a small city in many ways, and people talk, that Richard had been passed over for a major promotion at work. Apparently, the board hadn't appreciated the scandal of his very public divorce, especially the details about the affair with his wife's sister. His reputation took a serious hit. He was still employed, but his trajectory at the company had stalled. Jennifer had it worse. Her freelance design business had tanked after word spread about her role in breaking up her sister's marriage. Clients started dropping her. New contracts dried up. She'd had to take a regular job at a marketing firm, something she'd always said she'd never do. I'd heard she was struggling financially, had to move to a cheaper apartment. Part of me, a small, petty part, felt satisfied by that. Most of me just felt nothing. They'd made their choices. They were living with the consequences. That was justice, not revenge. I ran into Richard once at a coffee shop near the courthouse where I'd gone for some legal paperwork related to the house sale. He looked older, grayer, tired. He saw me and froze, his face doing something complicated. Guilt, regret, longing maybe. I gave him a polite nod, picked up my coffee, and walked out. I had places to be, a life to live. I didn't have time for ghosts. That evening, sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the city gold and rose, I realized something. I'd forgiven him. Not because he deserved it, but because carrying the anger was exhausting. I'd gotten my justice. I'd rebuilt my life. He couldn't hurt me anymore. I was free. Finally, completely, gloriously free. So that's my story. 28 years of marriage ended by betrayal, followed by the hardest year of my life. And then, rebirth. I got my justice, my settlement, and most importantly, my freedom. But here's my question for you. What would you have done? Would you have fought like I did or tried to save the marriage? Would you have forgiven them? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Tales of survival, strength, and starting over. I've got plenty more to share. Thanks for listening, and remember, it's never too late to reclaim your life.